after he developed a self-powering car, yes. A car that runs without fuel, petrol, gas, or even a charging station.
The future of cars is already here, and it has no battery, no fuel, and no charging station. It runs entirely on invisible energy in the air around us, just pure radio waves. Sounds impossible? Elon thought so too at first, but Zimbabwe just proved it works. Meet Maxwell Chikumbutso. He built the world's first self-powered car. But this isn't just about one inventor. This is the start of an African revolution that could shift the global automotive landscape forever. So what does this mean for Elon Musk and every big EV manufacturer? This is a direct challenge to everything the EV market is right now. The Supercharger network, the global push for lithium batteries, and the future of clean energy. All of this is now in jeopardy. Stick around because you might miss the most shocking shift the world has ever seen. The secret output Elon overlooked. Africa is producing over 10 million vehicles a year, and no one in Silicon Valley saw it coming. While American headlines were fixated on union strikes, semiconductor shortages, and Tesla Cybertruck delays, a quiet but massive automotive engine was roaring to life across the African continent. Morocco, South Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana had been building, refining, and exporting vehicles at a scale that would shock most American and European analysts. Morocco alone became the continent's largest car exporter, shipping out 400,000 vehicles in the year 2023. South Africa's auto sector employed over 100,000 people and contributed more than 4% to its national economic output. And these were not knockdown kits from foreign companies or rebadged imports. These were vehicles designed by Africans, for African conditions, and increasingly for the world. The African auto surge had little to do with Silicon Valley, and everything to do with necessity. While Western factories groaned under the weight of outdated supply chains and political gridlock, Africa built leaner, more flexible systems. Vehicles were being made where the demand existed. Rural towns, urban growth corridors, post-conflict regions, and they were designed to last. Tesla, for all its ambition, was never engineered for this scale or this environment. Its growth hinged on production in Shanghai, sales in Europe, and a political lifeline in the United States. Africa's automotive revolution, by contrast, was entirely self-generated, a massive, untelevised assembly line stretching from Cape Town to Casablanca. And what made these cars even more dangerous to Tesla? They were not built for highways, they were built for war zones. But before I go any further, I want to subscribe to the channel. It's really easy and free and only takes a sec. Just do it. Thanks. Built for chaos, why African cars survive, where Tesla fails, dust storms, flood zones, roads with no pavement. This is where African engineering thrives, and Tesla does not stand a chance. What makes an African-made car different is not luxury or style. It is survival. The continent's road network includes everything from dense sand tracks and pothole-ridden trails to flood-prone lowlands and steep mountainous slopes. Standard sedans would last weeks. African-designed vehicles last years, not through digital gimmicks or silicon sensors, but through raw mechanical ingenuity. These vehicles are built with higher ground clearance, stronger suspensions, and dust-resistant components. They are designed to be multi-purpose, used by farmers in the morning, school children by afternoon, and business owners by night. In rural regions, they might be the only link to a hospital or market. Compare that to Tesla's Model Y or Cybertruck. Sleek, beautiful, and brutally impractical. Try charging a Tesla in a village without electricity. Try navigating unpaved hills with a luxury vehicle that was optimized for American suburbs. Tesla's engineering, despite its innovation, was never rugged. It was never flexible. And most importantly, it was never built for human struggle. African automakers knew the terrain because they lived in it. They knew what worked and what broke. They built vehicles that could be fixed with a wrench and wire, not ones requiring certified diagnostic tools and digital keys. Africa's real breakthrough was not durability. It was power. Beyond the grid, why powerless nations are driving the future. When there is no fuel and no power, innovation does not die, it evolves. In parts of the world where electricity is a given, electric vehicles seem inevitable. In parts of Africa, however, electricity is a dream, and fuel is a luxury. There are villages where blackouts last weeks. There are communities where a gallon of gas costs more than a day's labor. In such places, the question is not whether to go electric. It is whether people can afford to move at all. That is what makes Africa's innovation so radical. It is not just about green tech, it is about survival. In Kenya, geothermal energy is powering EV charging hubs. In Uganda, solar buses are hitting the streets. In Nigeria, biofuel engines are being tested with cassava extract. And in Zimbabwe, a man is building a car that powers itself. The continent has skipped the fossil fuel detour. Instead of waiting for pipelines, gas stations, and charging ports to arrive, Africa is designing mobility solutions that work without them. This is not the 21st century version of catching up. This is something else entirely. It is the creation of a post-infrastructure transportation system. Where the West spent a century laying concrete, Africa is finding invisible energy. Where Silicon Valley built walled gardens of proprietary tech, African inventors are sharing designs with universities, local suppliers, and community garages. Where the world sees impossibility, Africa sees inevitability. And when countries joined the cause, this innovation went from survival to supremacy. Morocco's export empire is crushing American hopes. 2 decades ago, Morocco didn't even register on the global automotive radar. Today, it stands as the single largest car exporter on the African continent. And here's the twist: almost none of those vehicles are headed for American roads. In an era where the United States clings to its position as a manufacturing powerhouse, Morocco has quietly built an empire, exporting over 400,000 vehicles to Europe in just 1 calendar year. And that surge wasn't luck. It was the result of meticulous planning, foreign investment, and a national strategy laser-focused on becoming the North African Detroit. The foundation of Morocco's auto boom is rooted in partnerships with global giants like Renault and Stellantis. These aren't simple assembly deals. These are strategic collaborations that built a local workforce, scaled supply chains, and embedded global engineering expertise into Moroccan soil. Factories in Tangier and Casablanca are now churning out vehicles at a pace that stuns traditional industry players. The key? Morocco figured out how to build at scale without surrendering control. While the United States struggles with reshoring efforts and rising labor costs, Morocco is exporting to France, Spain, and Germany, dominating mid-tier auto categories without much noise. What makes it even more disruptive is how aligned Morocco's cars are with European demands. Affordable, efficient, and emission-friendly. Meanwhile, the American market remains largely out of reach, not due to lack of capability, but because Morocco is bypassing it altogether. This isn't just a win for Morocco, it's a direct challenge to the American auto hegemony, and by extension, to Tesla's grip on global EV dominance. Yet Morocco is only one piece of the puzzle. South Africa's automotive lifeline is more than jobs. In South Africa, a factory isn't merely a place of work. It's a second home, a survival plan, and a pipeline for generational change. Over 100,000 South Africans are employed directly by the automotive sector. And when you account for suppliers and logistics, that number balloons dramatically. These jobs aren't confined to sprawling industrial zones. They stretch across towns and villages, touching nearly every layer of the economy. And for many families, this is their only shot at upward mobility. The South African government understood early on that car manufacturing wasn't just about exports. It was about anchoring an entire social contract. Plants like those in Pretoria and Port Elizabeth produce vehicles under global brands: Toyota, BMW, Volkswagen. Yet the workforce is homegrown, the skills are local, and the pride is unmistakable. The industry contributes 4.3% to the national gross domestic product, but its emotional footprint runs deeper. It's not unusual to find 3 generations of the same family working under the same roof, each role more skilled than the last. These aren't just assembly lines, they're proving grounds, and they're sending a message. Africa doesn't just want jobs, it wants ownership. Tesla's automation-heavy, union-light production model stands in sharp contrast to South Africa's human-centric approach. One relies on scale, the other relies on roots. And as Tesla races to outsource labor to cheaper and more isolated environments, South Africa is turning factories into lifelines for communities. Just beyond South Africa's borders, something even more ambitious was taking shape: Ghana and Nigeria's rise. Local cars, local dreams. In Nigeria and Ghana, the revolution isn't happening behind closed boardroom doors. It's unfolding in open-air workshops, crowded garages, and freshly paved industrial parks. This isn't about foreign brands staking claims. It's about local dreamers reshaping national identity. The Kantanka vehicles of Ghana and Innoson Motors of Nigeria are not just assembling imported parts. They're creating African vehicles for African people. Kantanka is best known for its rugged sport utility vehicles tailored for rural terrain, while Innoson is delivering affordable transport solutions across Nigeria's fractured road networks. These companies are not just building cars. They are symbols of a future where African mobility isn't dictated by import policies, but by local ambition. More than machines, these vehicles carry the hopes of nations ready to unshackle themselves from global dependence. In both countries, car ownership was long viewed as a luxury few could afford. Now, thanks to local manufacturing, it's becoming a possibility for the middle class. That transformation isn't just economic, it's emotional. It's the dignity of a parent driving their children to school in a car made on their own soil. It's the pride of mechanics knowing they helped build something from scratch. Tesla, on the other hand, represents a different kind of dream, one that ships in tech rather than growing it. In Ghana and Nigeria, the dream is stitched into the very fabric of the land, and that's what makes it unshakable. What ties these countries together isn't just vision, it's how they're building it. The supply chain web that leaves Tesla out. Tesla thrives on vertically integrated systems. It designs, builds, and delivers with clockwork precision. But Africa's model flips that on its head. Across the continent, automakers aren't centralizing. They're decentralizing. They're building ecosystems. And the result is a supply chain web so deeply woven into local economies that global brands can't compete. Steel is smelted in Kenyan mills. Tires are molded in Egyptian factories. Upholstery is stitched in Lagos workshops. Every nut and bolt, every seat and circuit tells the story of a continent reclaiming control. These aren't imported parts repackaged for showrooms. They're homegrown components, supporting tens of thousands of small businesses. That model comes with its challenges: logistics, regulation, standardization. But it comes with unmatched resilience. When a shipment from China is delayed, a local workshop steps in. When a European supplier falters, African entrepreneurs adapt, and the wealth spreads. One upholstery shop in Nigeria might support an entire neighborhood. One tire factory in Cairo might put 20 families through school. Tesla's global dominance depends on exclusive access to parts, batteries, and tech. Africa's revolution, in contrast, thrives on inclusion. It invites the village, the technician, the welder, the dreamer. And this supply chain doesn't just power factories. It powers lives. While Tesla consolidates, Africa connects. And that difference is what makes the coming confrontation inevitable. Is the West ready for radio-powered cars? Western scientists are calling it impossible. African engineers are calling it tomorrow. The world is watching a confrontation between what is known and what is next. And the battle is getting loud. When news broke that a Zimbabwean inventor had developed a self-powered electric vehicle fueled by ambient radio frequencies, the Western scientific establishment reacted with disbelief. Some dismissed it outright as a hoax. Others leaned on the absence of peer-reviewed studies to justify their skepticism. In boardrooms and labs from Berlin to Boston, the idea of a car needing no plug, no fuel, and no lithium battery was treated as science fiction. Yet on the ground in Harare, it was already science fact. The backlash was swift. Think tanks, university engineers, and auto industry lobbyists began issuing cautious statements, cloaked in technical jargon. They questioned the feasibility, the scalability, the safety. What they did not question, at least not out loud, was the threat this posed to their investments. Because at the heart of the criticism was a deeper fear. That innovation was happening in places they never expected, and without their permission. This pattern is familiar. History shows that the most disruptive ideas often meet ridicule before reverence. The internet, solar power, even the electric vehicle itself were all mocked before they were monetized. The difference now is that the innovation is coming from Africa, a continent long underestimated in technological arenas. And that shift in geography is more disruptive than the tech itself. The scientific language may sound impartial, but the consequences are anything but. If a radio-powered car really works, if it can be scaled, regulated, and adopted, it dismantles existing business models. It rewrites infrastructure plans. It tears apart the assumed flow of investment. And no company has more to lose than Tesla. Tesla's worst fear: a car that doesn't need charging. If Africa's self-powered vehicle goes global, Tesla's Supercharger network becomes obsolete overnight. That's not just a line on a balance sheet. That's a direct threat to the core of Elon Musk's automotive strategy. Tesla spent billions of dollars constructing a network of charging stations across North America, Europe, and parts of Asia. That infrastructure was not just a convenience, it was a moat. It locked consumers into Tesla's ecosystem, ensuring loyalty and dependency. Now imagine a world where that moat evaporates, where cars charge themselves using invisible energy all around us. It is not just Tesla's chargers that would suffer. Entire ecosystems of charging hardware manufacturers, utility partnerships, and licensing deals would be thrown into chaos. Tesla would need to pivot fast, or risk becoming the company that got disrupted by a vehicle built for dusty roads and broken grids. The genius of the African model is its simplicity. No cables, no outlets, no reliance on overburdened power grids. For rural communities in Zambia, for urban districts in Nigeria, for flood-prone towns in Mozambique, this is a game changer. And for Tesla, it is a worst-case scenario. This isn't a case of Africa catching up to Western tech. It is a leap forward by a different set of rules. And those rules are exposing the fragility of the old ones. I will explain what that means, but first hit the subscribe button to help us make more videos like this for you. Thank you. Green without lithium, the death of the battery economy. Africa found a way to go green without ripping open the earth for lithium. If that holds, it could mean the end of the battery economy as we know it. For every electric vehicle that hits Western roads, there are hidden costs. Lithium mines in South America, cobalt extraction in the Democratic Republic of Congo, massive carbon emissions from battery production plants in China. These are the quiet realities behind the so-called green revolution. But what if an electric vehicle no longer needed those minerals? What if it didn't need batteries at all? That's the promise of self-powered cars tapping into radio frequencies or solar technologies. They bypass the need for extraction, for shipping, for energy-intensive manufacturing. They offer a blueprint for sustainability that is not just clean in use, but clean in creation. The implications are seismic. Entire supply chains could collapse. Mineral markets could destabilize. Political alliances built on mining rights could fracture. Investors who poured hundreds of billions into battery futures might suddenly find themselves holding yesterday's innovation. It also undermines a key argument used by Western governments to justify mining in Africa, that it is essential for the transition to green energy. If African innovators have shown that clean energy does not require dirty extraction, the moral case falls apart, and with it, so might the deals. Elon Musk himself once tweeted that he would prefer to mine less lithium. That future may no longer be a choice, it may be a necessity. China watches Africa closely, and Elon knows it. To China, Africa isn't competition, it's collaboration. And that should terrify Elon Musk. As Western powers scramble to challenge the legitimacy of Africa's self-powered car movement, Chinese investors are moving in quietly but decisively. Infrastructure loans, joint ventures, factory setups, training programs. China is not debating the science, it is betting on it. The logic is simple. Africa's innovations solve problems that Chinese firms also face: high population density, rising fuel costs, unreliable power in rural areas. A car that powers itself is not just convenient, it's transformative. From Uganda to Ethiopia, Chinese firms are signing memoranda with African startups. In Kenya, tech institutes are partnering with Chinese engineers to develop low-cost radio energy converters. The goal isn't just to build cars, it's to build an entire ecosystem where China and Africa co-own the next generation of mobility. For Tesla, this represents a strategic nightmare. China is its second largest market. If Chinese automakers adopt self-powering tech and pair it with Africa's scalable designs, they could mass-produce vehicles that outprice and outperform Tesla across emerging economies. More than that, it signals a new kind of innovation pipeline, one that bypasses Silicon Valley entirely. Africa isn't asking for validation, it isn't seeking permission, and with China in its corner, it doesn't need to. The rules are changing. And the next move won't come from California. It will come from the global south, riding on waves you can't see, powering cars that may never plug in again. The consumer revolution no one in the West is ready for. What happens when Africa starts exporting cars, not just to Europe, but to your driveway? Picture this. The same rugged, fuel-independent vehicles designed to navigate the roughest terrain in Africa are now rolling into markets like the United States, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. They are affordable, durable, and equipped with a crucial advantage. They don't need fuel stations, they don't need charging docks, and they don't need lithium batteries. This isn't just an evolution in design, this is a revolution in transportation. For years, consumers in these regions have faced sky-high fuel prices, unreliable infrastructure, and limited access to electric vehicle options. The vehicles from Africa solve these problems with a simplicity and ingenuity that traditional automakers have yet to match. The demand for affordable, rugged mobility solutions is skyrocketing, and Africa is positioned to meet it. The real kicker: Africa's self-powered vehicles are setting the stage to disrupt not just local markets, but global ones. Western manufacturers, long the undisputed giants in the automotive world, are now being forced to reckon with Africa's potential. It's not just about cars, it's about shifting the economic balance of the automotive industry. These vehicles are more than transportation. They represent a new idea in the global economy. And when Africa exports more than cars, when it exports the very concept of self-sustaining technology, the world will have no choice but to take notice. Why Africa could leapfrog the fossil fuel era entirely. The West spent a century building gas stations. Africa skipped straight to freedom. Imagine an entire continent shedding the shackles of fossil fuel dependence, bypassing decades of reliance on oil, and stepping boldly into a future powered by innovation. This is no longer a distant dream. It's happening right now. In Africa, the potential to leapfrog fossil fuels is not just an ideal, it's an urgent necessity. From vehicles that run without batteries to buses powered entirely by solar energy, Africa is crafting a blueprint for mobility that doesn't require the resources or infrastructure that have dominated the West for generations. Even biofuels made from locally grown crops like cassava are coming to the forefront, offering Africa the chance to avoid the global competition for dwindling oil supplies. This is a decisive shift. While the West continues to invest billions into maintaining fossil fuel infrastructure, Africa is taking a different path, one that doesn't just address the environment but also economic and social justice. The vision is clear. Africa is not just embracing green technology, it is defining a new era of sustainable mobility. And the implications for the world are profound. The globe is now watching as Africa moves beyond oil dependency, establishing itself as the world's first post-oil mobility zone. The stakes couldn't be higher, as the entire automotive and energy sectors are forced to recalibrate their approach to clean tech. The fight for Africa's auto future has already started. Behind closed doors, countries are lining up to control the very technology that Africa invented. The self-powered car is no longer just a prototype in a Zimbabwean inventor's garage. It is an idea that is shifting the global balance of power. Nations are now engaging in a race to control intellectual property, secure investment, and stake their claim on what could become the most important innovation of the 21st century. The fight for Africa's automotive future is playing out across boardrooms, legal offices, and governmental agencies. As the world realizes the potential of Africa's self-powered vehicles, foreign investors are scrambling to get a foothold. Meanwhile, African governments are wrestling with how to maintain control over the technology and avoid being overshadowed by global powers eager to take credit for an African innovation. From the United States to China, every major economic player is eyeing Africa's self-powered revolution. But the real challenge is how to manage and grow this newfound technological leadership without losing sight of the continent's own interests. The tension over patents, the battle for resources, and the lobbying efforts to secure political influence are escalating quickly. Africa is no longer just a consumer of technology. It is on the cusp of becoming the world's most important producer. The stakes are incredibly high, and as global powers jostle for position, Africa faces the unique challenge of maintaining its own technological sovereignty while sharing the benefits of this innovation with the world. The self-powered revolution that could end Tesla as we know it. The car that Elon Musk dismissed is now the one he's racing to stop. Zimbabwe's self-powered car, once thought to be a wild pipe dream, has emerged as a genuine threat to Tesla's multi-billion-dollar empire. As Africa's innovation takes root, it threatens to upend not just the automobile industry, but the entire energy sector that has been built around battery-powered vehicles. This is a pivotal moment for Tesla. Elon Musk built an empire on the promise of electric vehicles. But at the heart of that empire is a simple truth: the need for charging stations, batteries, and a global infrastructure to support them. The very thing that made Tesla viable, the charging network, could become obsolete. If self-powered vehicles take off, Tesla's Supercharger network would no longer be necessary. Consumers would no longer rely on the grid, and that shift could bring Musk's empire to its knees. The issue is more than just market share. Tesla's dominance is tied to the belief that electric vehicles are the only way forward, but this breakthrough has introduced a different kind of revolution, one that skips the battery and charging station entirely. The implications are far-reaching. If Africa's self-powered vehicles prove scalable and affordable, Tesla will not only lose ground in emerging markets, but could also face a fundamental challenge to its technology itself. For years, Tesla has positioned itself as the leader in green tech, but the myth of Silicon Valley's monopoly on innovation is now facing its greatest challenge from the unlikeliest of places. Africa is rewriting the rules, and this revolution is just getting started. But what do you think? Let's know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you there.